This is Christopher and Katherine, your favorite 401 couple, with our On the Couch, the Friday afternoon bourbon edition. All right. Talking actually about a rather serious subject today. Why apparently 50% of America can't retire. What are we doing wrong? 50% of Americans are at risk of retiring broke, and more are coming out of retirement to get back into the workforce. Today, we are going to talk about why this is happening and if there's anything we can do about it and what that is. We are judgmental in a lot of videos, all right? We're trying very hard not to be judgmental here, but to share what is being reported as what's going on out there. So the first key reason for there being a retirement crisis in America is
lack of savings discipline.
And so I'm not sure. So part of lack of savings discipline, I'm going to tie in with our good old friend leakage, all right? And that...
You need to go to a different bar.
Well, yeah, so we're... Okay. So what I meant by that was there, because we understand it's, you don't, many people do not retire from the first job after college anymore. There's lots of job transitions. What we have also is a lot of leakage. Every time people move or change companies, they cash out their retirement plan instead of rolling it over to an IRA or to their new employer's 401k plan. All right.
And can I put in a quick caveat in here is when you talk about, we're talking about doing it privately, but it holds for both sides that there is actually a lack of discipline both in the public and the private sphere, right? Because we aren't really seriously dealing with what it takes to have the right funds to do it publicly, right. and as well as privately. So as people go one system versus the other, I'd say both systems, it's a problem.
Also, this is a lovely hot topic: student loan debt, all right, and consumer debt. So there are. To go along with number one, lack of savings discipline, and then
but the reason why is because of that. It's hard to save if you have those things.
It's hard to save if you have a big student loan amount. Now then, our final bullet point for this section is lack of financial literacy. A lot of people don't understand compound interest, how it works. Okay, they don't understand the power of it. They don't understand dollar cost averaging. They don't understand the power of making lots of small purchases. Right now, people don't understand the power of buying when the market today, we're doing this at the beginning of April 2025, and there's a lot of red in the market, okay? Things are falling. It's not very good if you have to sell today, but because of a lack of financial literacy, people don't understand that today's the day to buy when stuff's on sale.
It's pretty, yeah. Okay. It's pretty complex.
It's very complex.
Yeah.
Number two, the power of an ERISA protected 401k plan. Now then, what is ERISA and how does it protect our retirement savings? Well, if we really want a big deep dive into what ERISA is, that's from 1974, and that's in our very first podcast, so go have a look at that. All right, Zach put a link for that in the show notes here. But basically, ERISA is a federal law that helps protect assets inside most retirement plans. And so then
it's a really strong law.
It's a very, very strong law.
Very strong law.
The IRS actually has to pay attention to what ERISA says. So there are a number of benefits of a 401k plan. One of them is
employer
matching. This is viewed as a very good thing in terms of, don't leave free money on the table. If you have an opportunity to defer, if your employer is doing a match, well, by all means, defer. However, I didn't realize we were getting to this right away. We were just talking about student debt. It is possible for your employer to make a matching contribution in your name in the plan based on how much your loan is. All right.
So keep your receipts.
To keep your receipts, literally. All right. As TPAs, there's some complexity to making this operate that's a little annoying, so we're not hugely in favor from the operational point of view. All right, but we understand from the employee's point of view, who's trying to reduce their retirement readiness, this could be a substantial benefit. All right, so find out about that. Number 2, Catherine.
There are tax advantages.
Yes,
So
there
there's
are.
both pre-tax and Roth options.
Now, so if you're making $50,000 and you make a $10,000 pre-tax 401k contribution, your federal income tax is going to be based on 40 grand. But when you take that money out of the plan, because there's no cost basis, you're taxed on everything. So what's the difference with Roth?
Roth, you're paying taxes on it right now.
You pay the taxes on the 10 grand
so
a day.
the earnings as they grow, you do not pay taxes on the earnings or the original amount you put in.
If,
You keep it in for 5 years.
and the next one?
Well, loans and flexibility. So, you talk about leakage and you don't want money out of the plan, but the thing about a loan is you are paying it back. So
To
yourself.
Yeah.
You're paying the interest back to
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. The interest goes back to yourself, and it's less than our friendly Capital One card.
Right. So we're
Right. The banker's
it's not
nodding his head. And then there's also a lot of flexibility inside a 401k plan. If you need to stop deferring for a while, you can do that. Most plans will let you start back up in a reasonable amount of time. The most restrictive you can have somebody increase their deferrals is twice a year. It needs to be at least twice a year, as far as I understand the rules, or the way I remember our plan documents are written. All right. So you've got the flexibility there. You can go back and forth between pre-tax and Roth in most plans. All right. And of course, you have different investment options to pick from in most plans. All right. Now then, also, what is the final? You love talking about making your own weather. What is something that somebody has when they have an employer-sponsored 401k plan? Okay.
Well, but the ownership part of, looking at your path, saving some money for yourself, taking advantage of a system to help build it. You're not completely relying on
Yeah, so
the ebb and flow of what happens in society.
It's giving you some ability to be active active participation in the active saving for retirement. You're not just completely passive in it. So you've got it's your skin in the game. Okay, you're not being completely passive. Maybe you're not being completely active because the employer gets to choose what the profit sharing and the matching contribution is. But if there is a matching contribution, it's up to you to decide how much of that match you can get. So that is on you as the employee. I understand there's a lot of outside factors, but it does give you some control there. All right. Now then, as Catherine was saying, number 3, the biggest 401k mistakes that hold you back. What's the first one, Catherine?
Not contributing enough and missing the match.
Right. That's a good old concept of, free money. All right. So if your plan is set up so that you have to defer at least 6% or more to get the maximum match, what happens if you're only deferring 3%, Catherine?
You're leaving half of the match.
You're leaving half the match on the table, so if you can. So when people ask, when I get asked, should I do pre-tax or should I do Roth? There's a lot of complexity in there. But if you're thinking about it, that if your employer's doing a 6% match, okay, and pre-tax you can do 6, but Roth you can only do 3. Well, my back of the envelope says do the 6 pre-tax, okay, because you're getting a larger amount and you're getting all the employer money. All right. So look at it that way. All right. Now then,
cashing out early. There's lots of penalties and leakage by not keeping it.
Opportunity costs, loss compounding, leakage. So in other words, if you take if you take a distribution before age 59 and a half, all right, you have a 10% excise tax penalty, all right, but that does not mean that you pay income tax on 90% of what you took out, all right? So you're paying, if you're in the 25% tax bracket, that's 35% in taxes going away. 10% for excise, 25% for for federal income tax. Now, what happens a lot of times is that I'm making this amount a year and I'm in this tax bracket, but they take a bunch of money out of the plan. Guess what happens? What happens, Filippo? It puts you in a different tax bracket. Okay, so you're not paying this tax amount, you're paying a larger tax amount. All right, so pay attention to that. Roll over it to an IRA whenever possible. What else do people not pay attention to?
Investing too conservatively. conservatively. Now, the thing is, we're not giving advice.
No.
But the thing is to take a look that if you're just putting it in cash, that's super conservative.
Right. So if you're putting it in something that is earning 0% interest, you are going backwards. Why? Because the record keeper is in all likelihood taking some percentage out. So there's that. And then if you've got 3% inflation and you're earning negative percent because there's fees coming out on your money, you are definitely falling behind. All right. So that's an extreme example of investing too conservatively. So investing too conservatively is based upon your own risk tolerance. All right. There are different record keepers have different tools to help participants figure out what their risk tolerance is. Obviously, it's based on your age, income, a whole bunch of factors. All right. But you need to understand your own risk tolerance and pay attention to it because it might change as your situation and age changes. All right.
Well, not reviewing fees. And I would say one thing about not reviewing fees is it seems that all the investments, they're trying to be competitive all the time and offer new things that are well priced. So the whole idea of set it and forget it isn't always the best idea, right?
Exactly. So it's harder these days inside a qualified retirement plan on a large national record keeper to pay high fees, okay, from one fund to another, okay? I'm not saying, okay, it is possible that a plan in general is paying too high of fees, all right? But most plans, they have to have the lowest fee, the lowest cost share class for that particular fund, all right? Now, there are a lot of people out there that like index versus active. All right, we're not going to get into that at all, but do pay attention to what the net returns are after the fees that fund is charging. Okay. What else should people occasionally do, Catherine?
Well, they should rebalance. So not rebalancing is an issue. So
Correct.
Go for it.
Correct. If you've started off too aggressive or you've started off too conservative, are you taking your old account balances into account with what your new risk tolerance is? Okay, so we're not going to go into a whole big. I'm going to keep this very short. Talk to somebody who knows a lot more about this, about how frequently you should be rebalancing for your own, okay? Please understand that rebalancing is a concept you need to know about. This one we can be very clear on.
And so then the final in this is not starting soon enough.
So a lot of like 22-year-olds, they're in the plan, like, oh, I'm young, I don't need to worry about this. I can worry about this when I'm 40. Okay, dude,
that's a retirement plan.
Because it's a retirement plan. I'm not going to think about retiring. I want to go to Cancun. Okay, I want a new car, and I need more expensive headphones. All right, no. So those are going to cost you a ton of money if you don't start putting something away today. The younger you are, that's the bottom line of that. Okay.
Bring it home.
How to take control of your retirement. Hit fast forward on this podcast. No. Okay. This isn't a podcast. This is a YouTube. Catherine, check your 401k plan. Yeah, the YouTubes. Check your 401k plan. What do we mean by this?
Are your deposits going in timely?
Right. Are they going into your account? Are they going into the right source? If you pick pre-tax, are they going into the pre-tax? If you pick Roth, if the employer is giving you a matching contribution, are they going into the matching contribution bucket? Okay.
And have the available funds in your plan changed?
In all likelihood, they have. There's a very high likelihood one fund on your plan offering every year has fallen out of favor. In other words, they're just not performing well enough. Are you in that fund? Is there a new fund to replace it? So pay attention to the fund lineup because it's not, in all likelihood, it is not static. Okay.
So if you want to see how much you can save when starting a new 401k plan as a plan sponsor,
right,
to be a plan sponsor,
correct,
go to our tax credit calculator using the link in the description.
Thank you very much for watching. You know the assignment. Like, subscribe, tell your friends and neighbors about us, but most importantly, don't forget to keep those cards and letters coming.
Thanks for watching. Toodaloo.